I think this is one of the reasons why when you attach a Form 8275, we'll talk, if you're not familiar with the Form 8275, we're going to be talking about that a little later, but that's a disclosure statement where, you can put the IRS on notice that, you might have a position that does not have substantial authority, but there is a reasonable basis for it. And for that reason, by disclosing it, you're less likely to be penalized so long as you won't be penalized so long as you meet the reasonable basis standard, and you can avoid tax return preparer penalties so long as there's a reasonable basis. So, but that's one of those things, and I've done that in the past, or advised people to do that in the past, where, for example, they get they're self-employed, they file a Schedule C, and they get like 8 1099s, and the 8 1099s add up to $300,000, but they have one 1099 that includes a check that was dated December 31st of that year for $22,000, and the taxpayer didn't receive it until the following year. So what we've done in the past is we've taken a photocopy of that check with an explanation explaining that, it'll be included in the following year because it wasn't received until January 3rd. And if you have a copy of the envelope, take a copy of the envelope and include that with the check. But but in those cases, we didn't receive any correspondence from the IRS. So I do think that they when a number of times they'll review some of this stuff before a notice is sent out, and if they see the explanation, I think they're inclined to believe it, because I think their feeling is that in their experience, people don't put those statements in if they're not true. But in any event, those are things you kind of learn through, or pick up just through, the audit process. And it is helpful because people, a lot of times preparers get a little bit flustered that if they prepare something in a way, they're going to get a notice, and somehow they think that, it's going to create a real problem. And, my experience is you just prepare the return the way you're supposed to put the return together, and and include a notice. I'm not afraid of audits. Taxpayers, a lot of taxpayers are. They get really worked up, and I understand it. But at the same time, you got to remember that you can't let your taxpayer influence you too much on how you represent him during an audit. Meaning, there may be some inclination for the taxpayer not to want to disclose things like that, but you don't want to be in a position where you're accused of not providing information that's been requested, or misleading the government. And one of the things I've done is I've included in the handout copy of section 7525, which deals with confidentiality privileges relating to taxpayer communications. Let's see, and procedures involving taxpayer interviews, section 7521, burden of proof, section 7491, and then just copies of the consents to extend the time to assess. Now, historically, the IRS would want you to file these, and typically they'd want at least a year before they had to make an assessment. But because the IRS is in, I don't want to call it total disarray, but substantial disarray, in their appeals offices is backed up. If they're giving you or asking you to sign this in order for you to go to appeals, there's extending that period, or putting a longer period out there, and it could be 18 to 24 months. And you're probably not going to hear from them or from appeals for probably 12 to 15 months anyways, depending upon how busy they are. But it's a real problem. But at the same time, if there is a directive encouraging the examiners and group managers to resolve cases, you should try to take advantage of that if you can, which means even though examiners can't settle cases based on hazards of litigation, it's been my experience that there are some adjustments that they're willing to concede or adjust in order to get a case resolved. And it might just be that you can persuade them that you have adequate proof for purposes of having them not make an adjustment for the item that they're looking at.